This time, Ed's opponent is Lee, an officer of the South Korean Navy Special Forces. He wants to show everyone the true strength of the South Korean Navy. The challenge this time takes place in central Kazakhstan, a region known for having the largest population of wolves in the world. It's a massive labyrinth filled with ditches and dead ends everywhere. Many explorers have been forced to give up halfway when attempting to cross this treacherous land. Both contestants will start from the same point, make their way through the maze ahead, and then walk 90 kilometers west along the river. Whoever reaches the mountaintop first will be the winner. At the referee's signal, both contestants dashed out at the same time. The competition had officially begun. Both of them dashed wildly into the maze without a second thought. Lee, not paying attention, immediately ran into a dead end. To make matters worse, he accidentally got hit on the head by a falling rock, and it looked really painful. Ed used the sun to confirm his position, feeling confident and ready to head south. But unexpectedly, a 50-meter high cliff stood in his way. He was now stuck too. Feeling helpless and frustrated, Ed had no choice but to climb a nearby mountain to get a better view and figure out the right direction. At first glance, everything except for one narrow alley turned out to be a dead end. The terrain here was incredibly treacherous, and his map had completely stopped working. But Ed had no other choice. He had to keep moving forward. Ed had a tough first night. He slept leaning against a rock wall the entire night. Whether he liked it or not, he had to head back out and continue the challenge. At the moment, both of them are still inside the maze, and their progress is nearly identical. Ed found a skeleton on the road and used it as a foothold. Although it had long since dried out, its sturdiness was beyond question. Before long, he had climbed to the top of the mountain. From a distance, Ed spotted Lee's position, and Lee saw him too. They both locked eyes, and instantly, the pace picked up as they began to run faster toward the summit. Both of them reached the edge of the cliff. Just as Ed was hesitating, Lee boldly slid down without a second thought. Ed stood there stunned for a moment, shocked by Lee's daring move. Warning: do not try what Lee just did. It's extremely dangerous and should never be attempted. After climbing down, Ed found a small pool of water. He took a big gulp to rehydrate himself, then looked around for a shaded spot to rest, trying to escape the scorching 40°C heat. Lee reached a cave and hoped that by going through it, he could escape the maze faster and secure the victory. After crawling inside for a while, he was surprised to find that the exit was wide open. After nightfall, Ed also began to run with renewed strength. Not long after, he managed to escape the maze. Since he had rested well during the day, he was now ready to continue his journey through the night. By the third day, Ed had stayed up all night pushing forward and managed to catch up in progress. He decided to rest at his current spot and look for some food. Meanwhile, Lee took a shortcut to reach the riverside quickly, immediately showcasing his impressive swimming skills. Ed noticed wild rabbits all around him, so he set traps in the area where they were most active. He blocked both sides with tree branches so that any rabbit passing through would surely get caught. Then, he ran into the tall reeds, trying to drive all the rabbits toward his trap. After a while, one wild rabbit was successfully caught. Ed happily roasted it over a fire and enjoyed his well-earned meal. In the evening, while searching for food, Lee stumbled upon some dried fish on the shore. Since it was inedible, he decided to use it as bait. He attached it to a fishing line and set his rod along the bank. In the middle of the night, he suddenly heard the line twitching. A large catfish had hooked itself. Quickly, Lee hauled it in and took it back to his camp. He roasted the fish and enjoyed a delicious meal. By the fourth day, Lee had crafted a simple raft for crossing the river. It looked a bit basic, but it was functional. On the other side, Ed had also reached the riverbank. He made a circle using reeds and then tightly tied camel skin around it. A simple raft was ready. Since he couldn't use the raft at night, Ed planned to set off in the morning. Time quickly passed, and the final day arrived. Both competitors were entering the home stretch. The distance between them was now around 800 meters. However, given Lee's youth and strength, he quickly caught up with Ed. Realizing that his speed couldn't match Lee's, Ed abandoned the raft and climbed onto the shore. Lee, using all his strength, made it to the shore. In the distance, he could see the final sand dune. But despite Lee's effort, Ed was still the first to reach the finish line. His opponent in this challenge was Kat, a survival expert with 25 years of experience teaching primitive survival skills. When she was a child, her father had left her in the forest to survive on her own. She is the most promising female competitor capable of beating Ed. The location of this challenge is set on an archipelago in the Pacific Ocean. The environment here is home to many dangerous carnivorous creatures. The two contestants are placed on the northern and southern sides of the island. They must travel 120 kilometers through dense forest and open seas. The first to reach the old ship at the center will win the challenge. When both contestants jumped into the sea, the challenge officially began. They both tried to swim as fast as they could toward the shore. Before long, Kat reached the shore first. She planned to head north to gather as many resources as possible. Ed, however, still wanted to enjoy the sea and wasn't ready to get out of the water just yet. Freshwater must be the first priority when you're surrounded by the vast ocean. While searching for clean water, Kat suddenly caught a strong chemical smell. She guessed that it might be related to the area having gone through a war. Drums of oil, remnants from World War II, could be seen scattered everywhere nearby. Ed also made it to the shore and noticed a lot of trash and plastic bottles scattered along the beach. He cut a plastic bottle in half and placed it on the ground to collect rainwater, so he could drink fresh water naturally. First, Ed needed to head towards the small island ahead. Luckily, the water level wasn't deep, and he could walk across, saving his energy instead of swimming. However, he didn't expect that in less than 10 minutes, a massive storm would hit, and the water quickly became deeper. With no other option, he continued moving forward, eventually reaching the shore just before nightfall. That evening, he could only find a spot nearby to rest and sleep for the night. On the other hand, Kat had a peaceful sleep while Ed was out searching for her. The next day, Ed was making his way towards the center of the island. The path was treacherous, with sharp volcanic rocks that posed a serious danger if he accidentally cut himself. Along the way, the thorny leaves also scraped at him painfully. Every step was a battle, and the cuts and scratches seemed endless. Despite the overwhelming pain and exhaustion, Ed pushed forward with all his remaining strength and, after what felt like an eternity, he finally managed to get through the hazardous area. Kat reached a mangrove forest, and at this time, there were crocodiles in the water. She had to cross quickly before the tide rose. Beneath the dense tree roots ahead was a perfect spot for crocodiles to ambush, but despite her fear, she had no choice. She could only step on the higher tree roots as much as possible. After a while, she reached the shore. She needed to get to the island ahead, but she was certain she wouldn't be able to swim there. She thought about crafting a raft made of wood to cross over. There were many dry branches around, perfect for use as the raft's frame. Ed was thinking about catching seafood, as it would be a waste not to eat them while on the island. He made a simple trap from a coconut, and now all he had to do was wait for his prey to come. The rain continued to pour, and a strong storm was approaching. Kat could only pray silently, hoping that the weather would clear up as soon as possible. Some were happy, others were sad. When Ed went to check his coconut trap, he found a massive coconut crab. Its powerful claws were so strong that they could easily crack open a coconut. Ed enjoyed a 5-star dinner with roasted coconut crab. On the third day, the weather seemed to improve, and Kat began improving her raft. She needed to gather scraps of fabric and tie them together to make a sail. On his side, Ed was searching for a fresh water source on the island. He found a large, rusted metal barrel that could be used to boil water. He crafted a makeshift water filtration system using plastic tubes and a metal basket. Then, he boiled seawater in the barrel, and the steam condensed through the pipes, creating fresh water. After 30 minutes, his homemade fresh water was ready. To protect his eyes, Ed ground some charcoal powder and applied it around his eyes to reduce the glare from the sun. Before making the raft, he sketched it out on the sand. Afterward, he collected bamboo and wood, then began assembling the raft. Everything was going smoothly, and the raft was coming together well. It looked quite sturdy and functional. On this side, Kat was preparing to set off. She had to quickly assemble a sail. While Kat was still on the island, Ed had already sailed a few kilometers on his raft, leaving Kat far behind in terms of distance. It took Kat the entire day, and by evening, she still hadn't finished the sail. Meanwhile, Ed was drifting in the sea, with no land in sight. He had no choice but to sleep on the raft. The production crew was terrified witnessing this. and in the middle of the night, he was woken up by the cold. With no other option, Ed decided to continue toward the island ahead to get to the shore and rest. By the fourth day, with only 10 kilometers left to the finish line, Ed immediately set off early in the morning. Meanwhile, Kat had finally completed her large raft. The time spent had not been in vain, as once the raft hit the water, it started to float smoothly, carried by the wind. A moment later, both of them arrived at the island where the shipwreck had occurred. Ed thought he would lose, feeling discouraged as he walked towards the referee. However, when he learned that he was the first to arrive, he was overjoyed to find out that he had won the challenge.